All right. Back in again. Let's wait for Josh. Let's see if this one works. If you can hear us. How does it look like?
Give me 1 second. Do you have the link for the actual stream that's going to be on LinkedIn?
I've just had messages from my colleagues watching on. I think we've been
Much
having issues from the start.
Now it
Okay,
works.
everyone can hear us? Oh, okay, perfect. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Roman, Dave, Evan. Thank you very much for bringing this up. Thanks, Josh, for being so available. I think we can start from the beginnings.
No worries. Look, I'm just glad the problems aren't just my end. If you didn't catch at the start, I was having absolute horrific issues with my webcam and all sorts, but it looks like it was the platform. So I can blame it on that at least.
Yeah. Let's all blame it on the platform. So it is not just you.
Blame it on the tool, right? So like that's what sales engineers do, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Or let's just imagine that it is someone clicked the wrong button, obviously not Patrick. No,
I don't.
In all honesty, we genuinely don't know what happened. So thanks again, everyone, and apologies again. Hopefully, everyone has been able to join in again, and we can pretty much boot up the conversation again from the start. We did take some notes, me and Patrick, in the background as we were talking. But it was pretty much, and apologies, Josh, for you as well. We will ask you to sort of like go through again how is recruiting looking at the moment. We'll cover off like what was the most important skill, just to make sure, because that even those like first 15 minutes was already so jam full of things to talk about. So we'll, just for the sake of everyone on that rejoined the live stream, we'll do it again. If that's okay with everyone.
Asking me to repeat any of my jokes. They've all been awful, believe me. You don't want me to repeat any of them. However, Lily, you need to do your amazing introduction again.
I don't know. Let's put value in immediately. So let's do value selling here. Right? No, I had the feeling in the beginning it worked a bit, but no worries. We will figure out in the recording. Maybe repeat quickly, what are interviewers or companies looking for in people who, like Pissang, joined from software engineering into sales engineering? I heard communication was one of them, right?
Yeah, correct. That was the game I was hoping to play with the audience, which I thought people heard, but unfortunately not. So a few months back, I spoke to global leaders in PreSales, literally for some of the largest SaaS vendors in the world, down to some of the smaller disruptors, and I kind of asked them, when you're hiring a first-time pre-sales professional, what is the number one skill that you look for? So, of course, I know a lot of sales engineers will say, as Lydia said, storytelling, of course, is one of the number one skills that you need to have. But for a first-time pre-sales professional, it may be difficult for them to understand what storytelling means, how to make that relative to their role, and be able to practice that. So, boiled down, I guess it is communication. So, when I asked all these global leaders, 75% of them put that skill in their top 5. It was by far the most common that came up. And communication, I know, Lydia, you alluded to earlier, it can be quite a vague term. And some of the ways you can practice your communication between professionals is get on LinkedIn, get networking, get speaking to other professionals in the arena, in the community, reach out to thought leaders out there. I said it before, I'll say it again. Pre-sales it's the best community, out there in the world at the moment. Everybody's super supportive. Everybody's happy to help. I've not met one person yet who isn't happy to respond, say hello at least and point you in the right direction. So, get out there and get practicing, get speaking to people.
There's one thing that's in my mind, right? So there is a stereotype with back-end people, maybe like developers, or I don't know. It's more like they are not very strong in communication. I think this is a stereotype, right? Not pointing at somebody. Is this? How do I do this in the interview process? So what do you tell people? Podcasters are the friendliest of all. Sorry, I got distracted by Kyle. Hi, Kyle. How do you prepare your so the candidates that actually move or cross over into the position, how do we prepare them on that? Like maybe fighting the stereotype.
Yeah, Patrick, you're right. There is a stereotype out there. I think, as you know, Patrick, I'm an ex-software developer, so I do take offence by that. I mean, I was absolutely terrible at it, don't get me wrong, which is why I'm a recruiter now. But it's not always the case. And again, communication, it's such a vague term. There are different ways of communicating. The way you present, so the same research I conducted with the global leaders, I kind of asked what their interview processes are, and every single one of them said there is always a presentation, phase. So whether it's not usually a demo, it's more of a presentation on an area that they're familiar with. Great way to show, your communication in that area. And of course, build relationships, speak confidently, don't just be too direct to the point, a bit of small talk, all of those things really, really help. 9 times out of 10, personality and being able to build a relationship with the hiring manager is going to go further than just your raw technical skills. So I would advise, if you want to get into the sales engineering space, get out there and get speaking to people.
Okay, yeah, but what I have in mind is, what are maybe transferable skills I can prove if I'm like, I was a developer, right? And now there is a different set of skills I need, different set of knowledge. What are transferable skills you would advise?
Oh, from software engineering, there's 2 amazing ones straight off the bat, right? Problem solving. There's no better problem solvers than software engineers out there. Problem solving is a huge skill to have in sales engineering, as you all know, as well as creativity and the way you approach solutions. And that creativity is going to help you find value in a solution for customers' problem. It's going to be able to really train your lateral thinking outside the box, and maybe highlighting things and educating potential customers on things that they weren't aware of. So those are some, straight off the bat, some great transferable skills. Also on that same research, after communication, technical knowledge was the standout second place in what hiring managers look for, at 63%, I believe, just below communication at 75%. So again, there's no real better background, is there, than software engineering for a technical knowledge, albeit, technical knowledge doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a programmer, you have to be excellent. I wouldn't let that put you off getting into sales engineering if you're not a software developer, but it is a great foundation to have.
And what's the toughest gap I need to overcome from your experience? What's the one thing where most people struggle or give up, even or companies say, no, doesn't fit?
Yeah, it's that presentation phase every single time. Okay. I think it all ties back into that communication and being able to tell a story. If you work with a recruiter for this opportunity, you definitely want their advice. The chances are that they've been through this process with this customer. They know the hiring manager and the requirements better than anybody else, whether that's internal or external recruiters. So they're going to know, what the hiring manager wants to hear. And although, we shouldn't give the answers, you do this and you'll get the job. We guide them to get there, and offer them advice on what to do, how a presentation looks, and if you're putting a presentation together with 10 bullet points on the screen and reading them out without any context talking around it, you're not going to get that job. So research and practice around presentation skills is an absolute must.
A question for me, Josh, on that one, because I've recently been lucky enough to get the chance to walk someone through that process of teaching them how, at least from my perspective and my very limited experience with pre-sales, what do people like the most to hear? What is the best sort of that, from personal experience I've seen, reading a couple of demo books, reading a couple of, what would you recommend as a potential resource or reference when it comes to, because if people don't have a pre-sales person they can reach out to or are comfortable asking the silly questions, even though there are no silly questions, what would you recommend people to start with when it comes to this presentation communication skill that's the most difficult, the biggest problem that you see people face?
Yeah, so YouTube's a great resource to just literally type in there, presentation skills, gentleman, and this is absolutely killing me that I cannot remember his name, and I can't unfortunately repeat the whole of his series of presentations, because it does have a swear word in there, but it's your slides are begins with an S. But that's absolutely wonderful to check out some presentation skills, the soft skills around it, how your presentation should be built. But again, it's important to remember that this presentation could be on a lot of different topics. It could be a real brief demo on a particular part of a product that this vendor may have. It could be just on your greatest achievement in your life, which is of course much easier to tell a story around. But a good example, I guess, recently we had, this is just a couple of weeks back, we hired a first-time pre-sales professional for a very well-known SaaS vendor out there. One of their products is in the recruitment space, and she worked within the recruitment space for 11 years prior. So the software that she's familiar with, the reason we onboarded a similar vendor, like she knew all of those issues that she faced as an individual. So she chose to do a presentation on her, her knowledge of the industry, what she knows about it, what those challenges could potentially throw up. So ultimately, she could show the value relatively easy in utilizing this product and how she would go around solving those challenges for customers. So it actually leads us into quite another nice point. When you are looking for your first-time pre-sales role, I think it's great to start with your the area that the market that very, very well. So if you're a developer in fintech, you may look at a fintech vendor. If you've developed ERP, CRMs, whatever it might be, if you know that kind of customer ecosystem, if you know what challenges that software solves, it's a great place to start.
So you're saying that in the sense of even if you don't have pre-sales skills, if you're completely like moving into this career, all you need to do is find like the little hook and the value you can provide to this company for them to then spend the time with you to actually teach you the pre-sales skills, etc.
Yeah, of course. And again, there's a lot of different transferable skills and skills needed in pre-sales. And hiring managers are great at looking for those throughout the various interview stages. So, the best advice, you're and of course, yourself, be open with them, be honest. Another two absolute must that I would recommend anybody in any interview process, junior or senior. You'll be surprised how many people don't do this. Number one is always ABC. I know it's an old cliche. Always be closing. After every interview stage, ask the hiring manager, thanks so much for this. How did I do? I'd really value your feedback. Get that immediate reaction from them. And second of all, stay communicating with the hiring manager in between processes. Time kills deals. We all know that one. And if if you've got a hiring manager with a busy diary, you're transferring from a busy career yourself. Interview stages can be a week, 2 weeks, even longer in some occasions apart. So, it kind of means you lose that. You may have a great interview, right? But then over time, you kind of forget a little bit about it. So just make sure in between those stages, you reach out to that hiring manager on LinkedIn, maybe drop them a thank you note. Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed this. Or maybe ask them a question on something that you thought about from the interview that you learned, or some additional research that you've done in between. Those two things will go a long way.
That's cool. So one thing, if I would thinking about joining pre-sales, or another role in that matter is, what is an implicit rule I need to know about, or ask otherwise, what shouldn't I do wrong, or what do you see most people maybe do wrong that they shouldn't do? Is there something?
It does vary. Again, that presentation stage is by far the most common. And there's only so much that any kind of supporting people can do. We can advise as a business, but ethically it would be completely wrong for us to give them give people the answers and say, here, we'll do this presentation for you, but we'll take a copy, we'll review it, we'll offer recommendations, we'll talk through, look, this is what the hiring manager is looking for, guide them in the right direction. But sometimes, they're not always wonderful. And again, that could be down to, lack of practice or, lack of input. But I guess other than that, common reasons people fail is, research into the client. It's surprising, you try to tell someone as much as possible about the customer, point them in the right direction to the resources. And, you know, people get onto an interview and they just read founded in this time, you know, by this person. That's not enough, right? That's not enough. Go out there and look at competitors. Go out there and look at what the value of this product is. You know, go out there and look at awards they may have won, communities that the external communities that they work in, operate or own, and you know, go above and beyond for that research, because it shows your interest in that vendor, and everybody wants to feel special. That's the same for hiring managers, that they want to feel that you really want that role.
I spoke to a hiring manager maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago, and it was interesting because he said, like, when there are people from different fields that want to join sales engineering, there's one question he asks, and this is, what have you sold in the past? Tell me something that you've sold. Tell me about this and your feeling. Yeah. And I think it's a crucial question in some way, right? What do you think?
I think
help preparing?
A wonderful question, not one that I've heard of yet. And of course, you know, you can be creative with that, right? It doesn't have to mean that you've worked as a sales exec or whatever, AE, BDR, whatever it is before. About anything in your life. So I think that's a great question to ask. And of course, something that you should always be prepared for. So I kind of, you know, when I look for first-time pre-sales professionals, of course, it varies depending on the client. Some smaller vendors, not a universal truth, of course, but some smaller vendors, they're probably more inclined to look for the technical skills because they still rely on the technical win quite a lot more than, you know, the value and outcome-based stuff that a larger, more mature organization would look for. But, you know, if I was to kind of rationalize the 4 skills that I look for, and this isn't an exhaustive list, it's just the kind of, we've all heard of the 4 C's of learning, right? I have my own 4 C's of a first-time pre-sales professional: communication, which we've talked about a lot, and creativity, you know, curiosity, and the last one ties very nicely into that prior question, which is commercial. And those commercial skills doesn't have to mean that, you know, you've worked in sales, but an appreciation for, you know, the business side of what a, you know, solutions consultant does. Like it's imperative. Yeah, you get some SCs who still very much the fact, you know, I'm not sales, but I find that, you know, the best SCs are the ones who embrace that, right? Embrace that they're part of a sales team, embrace you know, how important their role is within that sales process, and work collaboratively across, you know, the business. So yeah, that's the kind of 4 C's I look for.
Yeah, I think
sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say, I absolutely echo the part about coming into and understanding where you sit in the sales organization, that especially coming in from a technical background. And I can understand also people, like we were talking about earlier, like from a software development side, you know, or Patrick was calling them like the back end people. This is a very difficult point for people to really internalize, but there's a lot of material out there, and I think we've also had this conversation around, you know, coming in from a technical background, how do you internalize and how do you understand where you sit in the sales process, and how do you actually become better at understanding your customer and where are they from? But I think that's pretty much nailing the curiosity side, because even if you haven't experienced it, if you weren't very familiar with it, being curious enough to ask those questions is the key skill I think, you know, people would be saying. Or am I right with that? Even if you don't have the experience, people understanding they need to understand that.
Yeah, you're right. You know, there's the old saying of known knowns, you know, known unknowns.
Yes.
And the fact that, you know, that's one of your shortcomings, but, you know, don't just say, well, I don't know this, but this is what I've learned so far, and this is what I would do to find out. You know, this is who I speak to. These are the things that I want to learn, and show that real attitude. Just by the way, apologies to the audience. In keeping with the technical difficulties so far, my ring light behind has literally just turned off. I can't get it working again. I found an iPhone because I couldn't get the webcam to work. So absolute disaster from a technology point of view. So yeah, apologies to everybody.
No worries. Patrick wanted to say something, but let's highlight, yes, exactly. Let's highlight a couple of the comments. If in the presentation role play stage you say, I'm not sure, I'll find out and I'll send you a follow-up, do it. Thank you, Roman. And this is absolutely the most, at least in my experience, the most powerful thing you can say as a pre-sales. I'm not sure about this. Let me get back to you. That's just.
Absolutely right. And why not get back to them with a video? You know, send a video after the interview stage. in email or a LinkedIn Messenger to the hiring manager. I think what a way to stand out. What a way to stand out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There
The
is a
only
second
point
best.
I had still in mind, sorry.
No, worries, go
There
on.
was one point I had in mind. When I'm the hiring manager, right, what I want to do is effectively talk to you, right? So that's why, in some way, I need you to understand sales. That's why the what have you sold before question. And because I want to talk maybe processes or relationship with an account executive. So whoever goes into an interview also raises their their game, right? If you understand some sales terms, right? Because otherwise the other side has no real lever to judge you, right? To effectively see what's behind what you're saying.
Yeah. So books are a great resource. Of course, everybody, I'm hoping, has already owns a copy of The Social Sales Engineer. But there's plenty of loads of books out there, particularly around sales, right? There's a huge catalogue of things you can go out there, and you can start to familiarise yourself with some of the terms, whether QBR, SQL, MQL. It's great to understand what those things mean and be able to talk about them. So it's quite interesting. A lot of our talking points, they keep coming back to the same point. And it is research, it is preparation, it's making sure. I'm not quite sure if I've already talked about this in this version of the stream, or whether I talked about it prior when it didn't work. So apologies if I'm repeating myself. But that kind of research, it's absolutely imperative. So yeah, I won't go into too much just in case I've already talked about it. My apologies.
No, all good. I think it can be repeated. But what I don't understand is why aren't there more comments in the audience, right?
Yeah.
So people, Josh is here, right? Ask him, press him with your questions.
Hopefully, I haven't gone to sleep, which I'm hoping everybody's just listening and enjoying. But yeah, it'd be wonderful if questions.
Yeah.
I have a question,
Great.
if that's okay, because this is the second time we're hearing. This is the second time we're hearing how important video is in communicating. We were talking to a couple of ladies from the SDR world, and how much engagement those videos actually create. I personally have never done that. I don't do any video demos. I don't share anything like that ever. But the more I hear about it and the more people keep on mentioning it, I'm like, it feels like I'm missing something here. Why are you recommending video, like sending out videos? Is it just because it's the most engaging, or is it different?
Yeah, so I really think I'm incredibly lucky to do what I do with Ikuto. But it gives me quite a good perspective on loads of different hiring managers, how they like to work, kind of modern trends in pre-sales, and I love talking about them. But the one that comes up time and time again is the digital pre-sales, if you like, and video being a huge part of that. It's interesting that most leaders that I speak to before embracing video technology, they're always quite averse to it. They always say, "Oh, I don't, it doesn't feel very personal. I don't like the idea of it." Maybe they're uncomfortable in front of camera, which clearly I am. But ultimately, the value is it's huge. And a lot of organizations, whether you use Consensus, of course, other general automation platforms are available. But being able to, video something very small. Imagine you're on a call with a customer and they say, "Oh, I want to see this particular area." You can go back to them afterwards, send a short video. You've got metrics. It can be viewed. You can measure who's viewing it and when. You guys will know that technology much better than I do. But because it's so popular in use now in pre-sales, and its usage really is flying now with almost most clients that I deal with. If you're able to utilize that in your interview process, you can show your familiarity. Your comfort of being in front of in front of a camera, being able to record a bit of video editing, simple video editing, and again, it's one more skill that they know they're going to have less work, fine tuning you on.
Yeah, I really see this more often in companies, right? Sales leaders or pre-sales leaders, they say, we want to follow up after the discovery, for example. Yeah. And they have huge success with that. They get in Vidyard or something, right? And shoot a video after the discovery session, right? Open questions, answer this via a short video, or say thank you, or let's connect, whatever it is. that's usually successful in differentiating. So I agree. So if there's someone coming is open to that, right, and actually does it and proves it,
Yeah.
I think can be massive differentiator, even if you fall like flat on the sales knowledge or something.
Yeah.
Because you show some natural traits, like you act in the right way, right?
Yeah, exactly. And again, it goes a long way in showing your interest. If you're going out of your way to create something that takes your own time, which isn't required in a standard interview process, it's a way to stand out. And you'd be surprised how many people. It doesn't mean they want the opportunity any less. Maybe they just don't know how to or why they should. You'd be surprised how many people don't differentiate enough. So I think we may have missed as well at the very start, like identifying how to actually find your perfect career move. I know that was definitely on the version that had no audio. And if you're okay with that, I would love to tell the audience a little more on some tips on how you can go and find the right roles for you.
Yes, you can after Roman. Let's get Roman in again.
Perfect.
+1 on videos. Okay, cool. I've had the candidates that sent us a follow-up video on YouTube directly addressed to us to discuss a point we did not have the time to cover during the presentation. Great move. Wow. And it leaves an impression, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad there's a real world experience of that, a recent one in the audience too, because, again, that's creating memory. All of a sudden that candidate is sticking out and they're probably going to the next stage, I'd imagine, Roman. But yeah, so we're getting some of the ways people can identify new opportunities that you may not be aware of, because there are some cool tricks that literally barely anybody uses at the moment. And this is not just for first-time pre-sales engineers too. This is for experienced SEs, leaders even, on how you can go and find those roles. I spoke earlier a little bit about the customer ecosystem. Think about your current experience, the markets that you know very, very well, and stick within that. It's a good starting point. But if you find a role, if you find a company advertising a role, or even just a company that you really want to work for, they may not be advertising a position, treat it like a sales process. Do your prospecting for, again, another sales term, if anybody's out there wants to Google medpick or whatever, and economic buyer is a key part of that, right? Find out who the hiring manager is, who's got the budget, who's going to pull the trigger and hire you. And even if it's managed by an internal recruitment team, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. What you can't guarantee on the other end is whoever's reviewing your LinkedIn profile, your CV, of whatever you send in across is, you don't know how well they know pre-sales. A lot of recruiters really struggle, which is why we have, jobs. It's why IQto exists. And, a way you can get around that and kind of, leap that fence is go directly to that hiring manager. You can do it very simply by clicking on a company. If it's a large one, maybe use Boolean search and a few different ORs in a job title that this person may have. Find that profile, connect with them, send them a message. Hey, I really want to apply for this role. Can you advise the best way to do it? I'd love it if I can send you a CV direct. Maybe even do that over video or a voice note on LinkedIn. Again, something different, and that'll put your profile right to the top of the pile.
Nice one. Before, I have a really provocative question for you. Hopefully insightful for everybody else. Let's see what Elvin is saying. By the end of this interview, I will have sold you on the value I will bring to your company. Oh, okay, that's really interesting, because it spawns the question in my mind: if I've never done sales or sales engineering before, can I really understand how to add value?
Yeah, and I think you can. If you understand what you're getting yourself in for. Again, I'm going to repeat myself for like the 10th time. I can't remember if I spoke about this, but it was no audio or not. But I kind of talked about, like, when you're getting into pre-sales or whatever, and you're speaking to these hiring managers, the research that you put into just pre-sales alone. So it's super, super hard to find pre-sales, right? James from the PSC says the greatest job that nobody's ever heard of. And a lot of the time, pre-sales kind of finds you. You work for a managed service provider, systems integrator, SaaS vendor, whatever, and you kind of fumble your way into pre-sales, right? This is the way most people have done it in my experience so far. So if you're here, if you're already thinking about getting into the industry, if you've done that research, you're already miles ahead of so many other people, because the actual desire to want to get into pre-sales, it's bigger than anything, right? Because just like anything in life, if you're interested in something, if you really want to do it, you're going to have much more desire to go out there and learn it. So the more you learn about pre-sales, the more you can tie in your own current skills. And just like the comment said, this is the value I can bring to your company. This is the unique perspective that I bring to pre-sales, your team, your role. And again, you look at prospects and different people in your sales cycle and their kind of emotional needs. What do they want out of a platform? Well, your hiring manager, they want to hit target. That's what they want to do. They want to hit target. They want to grow their team. So you already know what value you can show to them. Look, I'm going to help you hit these targets. I'm going to help you improve your client out, and this is why. I think it's a hugely awesome statement and one I definitely agree with.
Perfect. Roman, add multi-threading. Look for team member. Be curious. Good one, right? If I research the team, I might want to get in contact with them.
And I think it's very powerful to say when you do get into the interview is when people start talking and usually interviews are two-way streets, right? They explain to you what the role is and you say what you think about it. It's so powerful if you say, "Oh, I had a chat with so and so in the team about the role." Immediately, I would be really impressed if someone says that to me.
Right, yeah. If it's a really small team and there's only a couple of people, you've tried to connect and maybe they haven't accepted just yet, they're a little busy. You can ask that during your interview process. I'd love to speak to your most recent starter and find out their experience. Some great head of the curve already utilize that as a stage in their interview process. But Ryan, he's exactly right. Research is a big word, and it can be about everything. It can be about the team. It can be about their backgrounds. Maybe you can talk about, well, I know this person. I had a chat with them. They're successful. They had a background in this. I've got a similar one. Et cetera, et cetera. It can be research around their product. Research against competitors. Research around, the sales terms we talked about, pre-sales in general. Generally, the more effort you put into any application, sounds like an obvious statement, I know, but the better chance you have. And it's hard, right? It's hard if you've got a lot of things on the go. It's hard if you're already in a profession. Just cut out a little bit. Can anybody hear me?
We can hear you now.
You're coming back.
Sorry, guys. Can anybody hear me at all? I just cut out a little. Oh, yeah, my iPhone is not holding up. Can you hear me okay? Oh, I hope it's not the stream again. Maybe the audience can tell if they can hear us.
Yeah, so you're breaking up a bit, but...
Is that any better? Apologies. Wi-Fi and iPhone, not the best way to do a live stream. Hello.
Josh, we can hear you very well. We can hear you.
Is that any better at all? Wonderful. I'm going to put it on the platform again. It's
sadly, no, I think this time it's you.
Oh no. Okay. Okay. I'm going to take the video off and hope that helps the connection. Is that any better? Hello.
We can hear you, but it's still a little bit wobbly.
Okay, I'll try again.
Now it's better. Now it's better.
Well, another apology. I've probably done 100, which is never good practice. But it seems I'm deciding to give up.
You know what this is, Josh? This is an opportunity for us to have you on the show again. with a little bit more prep, maybe from all sides, of making sure that everything is running smoothly.
I can assure you, Lydia, I promise. I tried to do the prep. Everything was in full working order for all of my meetings today, up until you really want it to work, and then it all just blows up in disaster.
This is absolutely a good example of being in pre-sales. These things happen, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you style it out? Hopefully, I'm styling it out okay right now.
Yeah.
You sound all right. So No worries.
Good.
Let's try the video in again, and then I think it will be good.
Well, I've seen a comment from Dave as well. If I get a load of videos filling up my inbox, I'm going to hold you personally responsible, Josh. Well, hopefully they're all of wonderful candidates, and then maybe you can thank me afterwards. I hope so. Fingers crossed.
Oh, there's an interesting question from somebody. I can't see who this is, but the question is, how do you master value selling in a product demo?
That's a huge question, and Patrick, I think you and Lydia could be awesome to answer this.
Do you want to start, Patrick? It is a very big question.
I don't dare to answer. Like, you first, please. Ladies first.
Okay. Oh, well, thank you. Okay. So whomever this is, how do you master value selling in a product demo? I think the first step would be, and I'm coming in from my own experience of, getting a product of whatever it is trying to do, it could be just being a nice RGB in your PC. Like, what is it? You try to put yourself in the shoes of your customer, right? If you don't know the shoes of your customer, for example, is a group of people that you've never communicated with before, ask questions. So this is where discovery comes in. You try to understand what is their pain points, what is it they're trying to actually solve with whatever product you're even talking about. And sometimes I've done this, maybe it's a little bit cheeky, but I have gone around the sales process a couple of times and reached out to the person individually that I know I'll be talking to in the next couple of weeks or so, and asked them, like, hey, I have no idea what your job is. Can we have a sit down for you to talk me through what is it you're trying to achieve? And then is where you start with the value side of this question, right? Understanding what value could you and the product bring to this individual or this company that you're working with. And then once you figure out that value, and that's usually part of the discovery process, then you actually put it into the product demo. You align that value with the features that you have currently in your demo. That's the way I did it. I don't know if that's the right way. Patrick will tell me that.
No, not to judge that, right? That sounds really good, and I think that this is the way to go. You can layer on some things on top, like desk research, for example, right? Get to what are industry trends, right? What are the things that their business, find this on their website, right? What is harming their business? What trends do they want to leverage? This is one thing. What's the value? What means value for this opportunity? This is where you say discovery comes in. It could be a career move for the person involved you sell to, right? Or it could be something the company needs as a project, right? So different value, right? You essentially layer it and then link it back to the product. And in the best case, you think about results, right? You don't talk about the feature. In the best case, you just talk about the benefits and even more about emotional benefits. So if you can make this happen, like this feels emotional to the client, they will even remember this better and connect this with them. But again, you need discovery to really do this, right? What's the context? What does value mean, right, in this situation? That's, I think, the question. Yeah,
I think we did a good job, even though this is a far bigger question, and I think we've had conversations about this in the past as well. But I think because especially like Josh is around, how do we around the recruiting part of this as well. I think this is a very difficult, because you see this a lot with pre-sales resources around value selling and being trusted advisor and all of that. I know, as someone who came in recently into the role, those are they don't sound like English. They don't sound like plain English. So have you seen this, Josh, with people coming into pre-sales? They know these buzzwords even to a point. How do you associate that with something that can you gain that skill before you even walk into a pre-sales role?
I mean, again, value, it has a specific meaning in pre-sales, which if you say value is a vague term for anybody else outside of it, they may not be able to understand exactly, what you mean by it. But again, tying back to the research point, the more you do, if you join any, community out there, if you follow any of the, the thought leaders, if you watch awesome live streams like this, you will soon pick up on that term, and you will soon start to, understand what that means. And like completely agree on the discovery side. It's a great way. Other people can stand out by doing a better discovery, asking questions. If you get a brief, from your potential new hiring manager and hiring business. Ask questions around it. Be creative as well with how you proposition your presentation afterwards. Maybe set a scene, give personas to people in the audience and say like this, I'd love for you to be the CFO. This is the problem that you're currently facing. Tie that into a feature that you're showing in a demo, and it's like again, another game-changing way to smash your interview.
And even if you don't get the information, right? So use like those new tools out there, like a Menti or something. So ask questions that they need to fill out, right? Like pop up an app and they do a quiz, and with the results you understand maybe a bit more that you can then weave in, right? So you can make this really dynamic nowadays, right?
Yeah, you can indeed. And I'm hoping, if anything, this live stream has kind of showed so many different ways that you can stand out, in an interview process, and that's definitely one of them. I say be creative. You don't want to be over creative and present on completely off topic. But some of the best feedback that I've ever received for candidates are those that get a particularly, and hiring managers do this on purpose, right? They give a real vague brief because they want to see, are you going to ask questions around it and show some curiosity and skills that really feed into discovery and agile discovery, and then kind of what else are you going to bring? Like, are you going to say, again, set an audience, right? Set like emotional drivers and target outcomes for individuals who are on the interview panel, right? And give them jobs to play. How far are you going to push it? And like I say, the best feedback I've received, the candidates who have done that.
Quick question on that one, by the way, about preparing. Sorry, Patrick. So I have seen, and I have received myself, sometimes just a brief of, this is what we want you to talk about. This is the scenario, in a more of a role-playing sort of situation, but this is the scenario, this is the presentation. Is it appropriate to start asking questions from that perspective, or is the expectation when you actually go into the interview to start having that sort of discovery before you start talking?
That's usually, it's usually outlined. A lot of the time they're hoping for one of two things. Again, that the candidate is going to come out and ask those questions, but it depends on how you present those questions, right? If you're just asking, 10, 20 questions on what about this? What about this? Can you explain this? Probably not the best way to go about it, but you can ask that. I know that you specified this. Can I also, assume this, or, can I embellish on this, or can I, put this process? 9 times out of 10, that hiring manager is going to go, of course, it's your presentation. Go ahead and do that. And they're going to want to see how far, or how well you run with that. So yeah, just make sure the questions are positioned in the right way.
I heard something interesting. It's similar to what happens to us now, right? All breaking up all the stuff here. So that when you're a hiring manager, the people come into the room and have a presentation in front of them, and then you challenge them. You break the pattern a bit. You say, like, yeah, I'm sorry, I think the software doesn't run anymore, right? Or the TV is not working, or the projector, whatever. Like to see how they react facing this typical job situation for a sales engineer, right? Is this something that happens?
Well, look, I've not experienced it with any hiring manager I've worked with, but I guarantee there are people out there who like to do that, throw a spanner in the works. They like to watch the world burn. But you can go further with that as well on objection handling, because again, breaking that pattern, maybe one of the people on the interview panel, puts their prospect hat on and decides to challenge them. So again, I should have clarified earlier, definitely something to research is objection handling, the best way to do so. But going back on this point, technology failures, which we all did on purpose, by the way, today, just to give examples of that.
Exactly.
Best thing I could say is just keep you cool. I probably haven't done so very well today, but keep you cool. I'm sure Patrick and Liddy, you have many stories of that happening, and you just have to style it out.
Absolutely.
What I So in my life as sales engineers, what I witnessed was like there was a room full of sales engineers, right? We had a meeting and the projector crashed. And then there was some awkward behavior. Everybody chuckled like, we are sales engineers, right? And our stuff is breaking. I hated this, right? This was, we made ourselves so small because it really meant we are responsible for all the stuff, but that's not true, right? It's just like, yes, it's a good preparation for a meeting, but it's not limited to the sales engineer, right? That the projector runs. Yeah. So that's just one thing.
No, you're exactly right. Technology fails for everyone, not just sales engineers. You know, you're not cursed. Don't worry.
Don't make yourself small, right? So don't limit yourself to the tech.
Yeah.
Especially if you go into interviews, it's your value is not the knowledge of technology. The value is you as a person and how you can stand in presenting value, right? So transferring the value.
Yeah.
And that is so cool, Patrick, because again, especially for people coming in from a technical background, we are so fused into this idea that all the value we bring is just technical. Well, that's not true, everyone. Because I personally went through that.
Because if you would, you could never catch up with everything that you could potentially learn, right? So you will always have gaps, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this transcends, you know, industry and profession, but having an open mind to learning and always understanding that there's always more to learn, like it's a great attribute to have for any profession, not just sales engineering. So yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah. So I think it's Hassan who is the LinkedIn user. At least he was the last time. I checked on LinkedIn. What I wrote you in the show notes, Lydia, is, so we're making notes in the background. This might be a good episode, right? To talk about how do I value sell in a product demo? How do I captivate the audience in a product demo? I would love to take this in a new episode because it's really, you can say a lot about this, right? So let's park this for now here. Thanks for the question anyways, but we will cover it definitely in one of the next sessions. But let's stay with the interviewing so far, because I have one question that might interest everybody. Josh, talk about money. when do I undersell myself? So when do I devalue? Like, how much do I need to get paid as a sales engineer? And what can I expect, like from a developer, a raise to the sales engineer? What's a typical thing? Also with commissions maybe, or equity, what's your view on that?
Yeah, really interesting point actually. And you know what? There are many different motivators for people in sales engineering. And you know, I'll be honest, if you're commercially motivated and you're doing it just for the money, it still doesn't mean you're going to be a terrible sales engineer. You know, like if that's your driver, then that is your driver. Absolutely fine, as long as it doesn't mean that you're moving every 3 months to the highest bidder. You know, that isn't necessarily great. So being money motivated, like I completely understand it. And as we all know, sales engineering right now it's paying incredibly well, and that I think right now we're hitting a small plateau where I don't think there'll be any huge increases over the next 6 months or so, because it's increased so much over the last 2 years. You know, as buyer enablement accelerates and the drive for bigger and better pre-sales team and the more investment that comes into the technology surrounding the pre-sales ecosystem, all of these things are like catalysts, right? You know, people, I think there's research out there that says now buyers have done like 60% of their process, and they're more equipped with better processes and methodologies and tools than ever. And they've done that before they engage with any vendor. So, like, you know, the importance of pre-sales is why, you know, that kind of the salary is going through the roof. And look, pre-sales has always been hugely important. I'm just glad now, of course, that we all are, that's come to the forefront a little, right? There's been a light shined upon it with those changes from buyer behavior. So long may it continue, and I'm sure it will. But the average salary at the UK now, I believe, sits around 115k. That's pounds. So, you know, easy to translate into USDC or, you know, US dollar, sorry, or euros. And then I think OTE is around 137, 140, around that mark. But that is for an experienced IC, right? Experienced individual contributor that's been in the industry for a couple of years, which is senior, I guess, these days in sales engineering. But it's important to also remember that that research comes from Consensus. I'm sure everybody knows they do a workload and compensation report every single year. Like, check it out, it's awesome piece of content for lots of resource on everything from average AE to SC numbers to deal cycles, whatever. Just great piece of content to go and look at. So I'd highly recommend everyone downloads that. But I've worked with vendors who pay much less. I've worked with vendors that pay much more. And pre-sales is different in every organization. It really is. And there are many different roles in pre-sales too. It isn't just sales engineering. You've got people on the bid team, demo engineers, value consultants. It's pre-sales architects. It's such a broad thing. So when you look at salary and you're thinking about what you deserve to be paid, make sure you're looking at the right bandings and you're researching in the right areas. For any first-time pre-sales hires, I do find depends on the type of vendor you work for. Typically, larger organizations, they do pay a bit better. But, Patrick, I know this is something you wrote about quite recently, actually. There are many different benefits and drawbacks of working for large companies and smaller organizations. And, I don't know how much time you've got or how deep you want me to dive into those, but I think it's definitely important that you do your research and understand what's best for you, and what you want. So if you are moving to a smaller organization, expect to be paid maybe a tad less. Maybe you get some share options if it's ABC funded organizations. But the great thing is you may be paid a little less, but you'll get exposure to so much more. You'll get exposure to customer success. You'll get more exposure to the front end of sales, marketing. It's I would advise, if you haven't done it, to anybody to go and work for a startup, because it is lots and lots of fun.
Yeah. Plus the equity is actually the one, right? So take the responsibility, don't take the money, but take the equity and build it, right? And maybe hi Sam, maybe that answers a bit of your questions, hopefully. Because we are way over the end of the session. I think we should closing it right here, I think. Thanks, Josh, for going over. Is there anything that you want to tell us at the end, or give an advice to? I know you said a lot, but is there something you would condense it down to for moving into sales engineering?
Okay, specifically for moving into sales engineering, absolutely go and do it. Look, I'm happy to speak to absolutely anybody, personally, and advise any tips after this, because there's been so much, and I'm sure quite hard to condense all of it. But research element, I just really want to touch back upon. Always do research on absolutely every area, and put as much into the opportunities that you really want as possible, because you don't want to spread yourself too thin. If you're in no rush, take your time, find a few that you really like and you're really interested in, dedicate your time to them. Always be close after your interview stages, and communicate throughout the process in between interview stages. Send those videos to your prospects, right? Your future hiring managers. And salary negotiations at the end, Sam, top tips for that. Sam, good friend of mine, glad you joined us. And yeah, if anybody wants to discuss anything like that afterwards, I'd always be happy to either join you again, Patrick and Lydia, I'd love to, or speak to anyone directly.
Thank you so much, Josh.
How can people reach you?
LinkedIn, always the best way. On my LinkedIn page, you'll have all my contact details there, but I'm on LinkedIn almost every day, albeit it is a short week for us here in the UK. We've got a long weekend off now, so I'll be returning to work on Monday, so please bear with me. I'll be looking after my tyrant of a child.
No, absolutely, and I think that's all. Thank you so much again, Josh, for having us. Thank you, Patrick, for co-hosting as always.
Yeah, it's
so insightful, very good. I loved it. Yeah. Thank you, Lydia.
And honestly, Josh, if you're open to it, I think we'll gladly have you over. I think there's also a topic to have there around, okay, now I'm in pre-sales. I got my first role. I've been around here for 2-3 years. What do I do now?
Yeah, great.
If anyone in the comment section is interested in any of that, give us a shout. I am pretty sure that Josh won't mind coming over again. No promises for technical issues, but I'm pretty sure that we were just unlucky this time. It's because it's the long weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I blame it on. But yeah. hoping there will be, if I am invited back, which will be, and I know it's been a pleasure speaking with both of you, and yeah, I'd love the opportunity again. Thanks so much for listening to my dulcet voice for this long.
No, thank you so much,
Thank
Josh.
you for coming.
You can reach both me and Patrick on LinkedIn and on Twitter. We have all of our contacts also on our profiles, and you can watch the on-demand version of the live stream on YouTube as well.
Exactly. Don't forget to subscribe.
Oh yes, need to get into the habit of that.
Enjoy your evening or day, well, no matter where you are in the world. And thank you, Josh, again. It was a pleasure, and we are over and out. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.